Building up your business, office, or work from home. Where is going to be the best place to work with your client? We'll go over the pros and cons of having a brick and mortar location or working from home. Which should you choose? Well, it's going to depend on many different factors. One of them being, well, what services do you offer? Do you offer family law services where you're going to have to meet with the client directly? Or do you do the kind of services where the client fills out the questionnaire, you don't need to meet with them, and you just fill out the forms on your own, and then you can email them to the client? Basically, it's really going to depend on the services you offer and how you provide those services. Sometimes it will depend on the client's preference. One example, I have a high demographic of Hispanics that I work with, and they actually prefer to come into a physical location for them to get the services that they need. They just feel more comfortable that way. That's what they prefer. Also, sometimes maybe people of a higher age would prefer to just come into the office, handle everything from the moment they walk in until they walk out. Also, sometimes some people don't have access to the virtual technology that they need in order to be able to do services virtually. So it might depend on the client's preference. Also, privacy, right? Is the kind of work that you do require privacy, like that you're in an office away from anyone else? That would be, something to take into consideration when determining where's the best way to serve your clients. Commercial lease. So let's talk about the pros of a commercial lease, right? The brick and mortar location, an actual office. Some people find that with a commercial lease, they have increased productivity. When they come to the office, they're there to work. They're focused on answering client calls, returning emails. They're able to get more work out in less time. Also, when you're working in an office, you have everything you need within reach. You have access to the printer, the copier, the scanner, postage, envelopes, and you have it accessible, which helps with the productivity. For a brick and mortar location, when clients walk into your office, it gives off a professional appearance, right? They can see that you care about the work that you do, like that's something that they can think about you. They see you as someone who has the knowledge necessary. I mean, that's not fair for them to judge you based on what your office looks like, but it's the reality of having a location. It has that perk. Also, you have room to grow into, right? So I know when I first started my business in 2015, I probably bit off more than I can chew with a commercial office. But I had the space for when people wanted to come in and help me, and maybe employees, then I had space for them to come and help me. And if they had any questions, they could just, turn the corner or go through the room, and I was there able to help them. So we were able to grow with commercial lease locations. There's lots of opportunities for networking, right? You can create like venues for events, host, a toy drive. You can do a food drive and also invite people over so that you guys can have meetings at your location. So then there's, networking opportunities. Also, with my location, I'm not there anymore, but in 2015, I had a um, location that was on the corner of a very busy intersection heading towards the freeway. And so by me putting a sign up, it was almost like free advertising. Um, and it was great for branding purposes and marketing, and just by being there, right? People knew all about the services that I offered. I put stickers on the window that would say family law, and it was tactful. It wasn't hey, you need a divorce, come here. But it was more tactful. It was more like, we offer family law services, immigration consulting services. So that's an opportunity of having a commercial location. So all that sounds fine and dandy, but let's talk about the cons of having a commercial location or working in a physical office. The lease. I was bound to a contract when people sign leases, it could be for 1 year or it can be for longer. A lot of landlords don't want to just rent to you for 1 year. They want you to have the place for 3 years, and then they have an option for you to renew for another three. Now, one thing I would say about this specific point is I did the first one, I believe, for 3 years. And the reason for that was in 1 year, I was not going to be able to come in, set up shop, and gain the trust of my community for them to see that I'm there every day, I'm here to help. I know with certain clients, they're afraid of scams. And I actually had someone when I first started working saying, "Are you going to be here in 3 weeks, after you take my money?" I mean, that was when I first started, and maybe I was a little less confident in, my ability. But either way, that was very rude because I was offering a service that I knew how to do. The only thing is she vocalized what maybe a lot of other people were thinking. So of course, I'm always open to feedback. Anyway, it's rolled up, I guess. But anyway, so when you're doing a lease, it's usually going to be for longer than 1 year. Also, sometimes I find that people hesitate to come into your office for a good 6 months. There was this time when I first started my business, I was kind of scared of putting my sign out of saying, "Hey, I do immigration consulting," or "I do divorces," because I was afraid that the phones were going to ring and I wasn't going to be able to handle all of the work. And yeah, that's not how that played out. I would roll out my sign, day in and day out, and didn't get that many clients in the beginning based on walk-ins, or it was most the clients I was getting was based on my either word of mouth or the ads I was placing on Facebook. But in terms of people just walking in off the street, even though I was in a busy intersection, it just wasn't happening. And but at the 6 month mark, people just started coming in, and I would ask them, "Oh, thanks for coming in. How did you hear about our services?" And they said, "Oh, when you first opened, I saw that you were here," and I held on to a flyer, and because I had passed around a lot of flyers through the area near me at fruit stores and laundromats, and they're like, "We held on to it, and well, we wanted to come in." So as you can see, if I did it for just 1 year, the lease, I mean, by the time I'm ramping up, it would be time to, shut down. All right, moving on. When you have a commercial lease, you have clients come in without appointments. I sometimes feel like a sitting duck because even though I have a, online scheduler, the clients that were mostly my target demographic, like I said, they're not going to hop online and schedule their own appointments. They're just going to come in and they're going to knock and they're going to say, "I was in the neighborhood and I thought that I could drop off these documents." And meanwhile, I was with another client. And that was, in the early days when, I didn't have um, anyone to be reception or someone helping me in the office. So I was being interrupted. As of right now, with the COVID pandemic, I've kind of scaled down my business a little bit and moved it more to virtual. The interns that were helping me, I only had an intern one at a time, but I've had a couple, they went back to school or things like that. So it just worked out. And now I'm just, doing things solo, and I love it. But I've tried all these different things of having employees, having brick and mortar locations, and I've always invested in my business and in myself. And so this is what I was doing in the past. Anyways, you may feel like you always have to be at the office. I remember that when I, was working by myself in the beginning, also, if I had to go down to the courthouse, I would maybe leave it for Fridays to go to the courthouse. I mean, I didn't have that much work. And so I would be able to go once a week. And I would have calls from different clients blowing up my phone saying, "Hi, I'm standing outside your office. I was in the neighborhood," and that would like kind of stress me out a little bit. Now I'm like, yeah, I'll be there around 3 if you want to come back or something like that. But before it used to stress me out, and because a lost client is lost money. But luckily, in year 6, I have a little more cushion and wiggle room to be a little bit less stressed. So yeah, so at those times I felt like I always had to be at the office because I would probably lose money if I wasn't. Anyway, I had higher overhead expenses, right? So I had to pay utilities. I had to pay for an alarm system. I had to pay for internet, shredding, my phone lines. I mean, just everything, printers, ink, every paper clip that came into that office, I had to pay for it. Um, and like I said, I invested in myself, and I made it work. But some people would say, well, why get shredding? Well, because you want to make sure that everything you do is to protect the client's documents and that you're providing the best service that you can. Sh- Maybe in the first couple months or year, you're manually shredding the documents, but as you get more work volume and I work in immigration, so sometimes our files are really, really, really thick. Um, and so there's certain expenses that I feel like are must-have expenses. Those were the pros and cons for having a brick and mortar location in um, some place where you can go to. People know that you're there. When they walk in, there's this sense of trust, right? That they see that you're going to be there day in, day out, and they start referring their family. They're like, go to that office, and they always know where they can find you. So there's a lot of pros and cons to the commercial space. Now we're going to talk about working from home slash virtual. And I know that this is common, with the pandemic, where a lot of businesses had to close down, or it's just not safe to start seeing clients face to face again. Some people, are older or have certain health conditions. There's many reasons why perhaps some people who were previously working out of a commercial location are now only doing virtual. I know in San Francisco there was a lease termination clause that they allowed people to just without penalty say, I no longer want to be in this office location or in this retail location, and they were left, able to do that without penalty. There were some specific rules and the deadline passed. So let's talk about working from home.